Hello, everybody. My name is Harpal Kochar, and thank you for taking the time to attend this webinar. So, just a little bit about myself before we get started. I've had experience with college applications and summer programs very much firsthand, sending my own daughter through these processes, both my daughters, and my older daughter went to a top 20 college in the US. I am a first generation immigrant parent with about 25 years of experience working in the US in the corporate environment, and for the last 7 years in college admissions. I've taken formal education in college admissions at Stanford and at UC San Diego. They say brand is what people say when you're not in the room. I think brand is what people would say when they came to your funeral, okay? Or what was written in your obituary. So you build a brand literally imagining. I build my brand hoping or fantasizing the future about how people will think of me when I'm not around. I strive on a daily basis for that one lecture or that 2 sentences a person will talk about me when they come to my funeral. Plan your brand for that. Life is simple. Life is not too hard. Life is not about millions of likes. We don't want to become superstars. We want to be able to help some people and help them well. You've heard about LeBron James, right? LeBron is known as one of the best. He is the best of the best when it comes to shooting, right? In the game of basketball. But LeBron is also known for many other things. He's known for somebody who showed a finger to Trump, right? He's known for being for the people. He believes in doing right things. So if I have a situation in life when I want to reach out to somebody and there are 5 people available who I can reach out to and one of them happens to be LeBron, I will call LeBron because implicitly he's built a brand that he will help me. LeBron cannot do anything wrong. It's not because he's the greatest athlete of all time. It's because over time, meticulously with his implicit actions, these were not explicit actions, these are implicit actions. He has something more to offer to the world. I talk with college applications because most of my students are applying to amazing schools and they want to go. And they ask me questions like, how should I differentiate myself over others? And I tell them, I said, you do not need to differentiate yourself over. So for example, Harvard takes in 1,700 people. They get about 55,000 applications. So that's about 4% or 5%, which is their acceptance rate. You are not competing with 55,000 people. You're competing with only a few schools and only like 10 or 12 students, out of which 2 will make it to the US. All you have to do is think about those 12 students and figure out how you can distinguish yourself over those 2. Okay? And this illustration of this bear is a story which says the bear was coming, 2 people were running, 1 person stopped to put on shoes. Well, the other was like, idiot, you got to run, let's run. It's the bear's coming and he said, no, let me put on my good shoes because all I have to do is run faster than you. Okay? If you know yourself and you know your competition, as Sun Tzu says, who's The Art of War, I read these books a lot. I'm big into philosophy and I would recommend everyone in their life to read The Art of War by Master Sun Tzu. You will never be defeated. Sometimes it's even more important than knowing yourself is knowing who your opponent is. And once you know that, you're good. Brand is not about you fighting against Kanye West or against Beyonce. You're going to get your rear kicked if you think about that as your competition, because that's a non-starter. They play a different ball game altogether. When Kanye started, he started with playing against rappers around him. That's where his brand was built. Okay? What you need to do to differentiate yourself is to build what we call as rare and valuable skills. I have applied this when I was coming from India to the US, when I had to build some skills which people would buy my skills for. So there was a language called Java, which had just come out back in the days in 94, 95. James Gosling had just created a language. There was a company called Sun Microsystems that gave it out. There was nobody who knew what Java was in 1996. And when I decided to come to the US, I said, I'm going to just study the heck out of this. So for 3 months straight, I did not do anything else. I just sat down in a dungeon and I studied Java. I built a rare and valuable skill that people wanted. What happened was when Merrill Lynch came to India, the people who interviewed me had no skill. They had some basic knowledge of Java, but I beat them right away. So as long as I could have skills more than the interviewer, I was good to go. And the guy said, we'll get back to you. And he didn't get back to me. He sent me a visa, okay? He sent me an offer letter. He didn't even ask me for what will I accept. He just sent me a disgustingly amazing offer and I came, okay? So this is a metaphor for how you build your skills, what the world needs, okay? You start with what are you good at? And again, you don't have to be good at, you could just be good at being a guide in Zimbabwe, right? For certain, tourists and things, or you are good at computer programming in Python, okay? Okay. When I was growing up, I could negotiate really, really well. It's because my father used to ask me to negotiate with the fruit stand, the guy who would get bananas to our house on a daily basis. My father would give me a certain amount of allowance and say, this is your budget in which you need to buy the bananas. And whatever I was able to negotiate was my cut for the day. That's what based on which I could eat all my garbage outside. If I could not negotiate a good deal, we had to get 12 bananas in the house, okay? And I had to negotiate to keep my cut in between so I can enjoy evening with some friends outside. And I became very good at negotiations. So that is a skill. So for example, we just went to buy a car for my wife and the guy was like, there's no way I'm going to go less than a certain price. I still was able to get him to shave off another $2,000. So, and he asked me the question, he said, have you ever worked at a car dealership before? The fact is I've never, but I have a skill to negotiate. I have an empathetic way to know how the sales guy is going to work on the other side. It works. The gospel of branding is you don't want to be boring. I want to tell you about quality over quantity. It's not about how many things you've done. Do a few things and do them really, really, really well, okay? Even if it's one thing, be known as the boss of that one thing. Ultimately, I can't tell you what you're good at. You know what you're best at, okay? It's impossible for anybody else. I mean, sometimes students come and ask me this question saying, what do you think I'm good at? I'm like, honey, that's the wrong question. That's a question you need to answer. Okay, you can tell me what you're good at, and I could critique it and help you get better at it. Okay, many of us students are very humble, or we just don't have that confidence. We've grown up in such broken background. I mean, life is just broken for students in general. Okay, they can't believe that they're the best, but you got to fake it until you make it. So fake, fake, fake. I did that. I did it for a living. I faked it, and then I made it ultimately. Okay. A brand is really around these 6 things. As a student, your performance matters, and that's your performance, your grades are 50% of your brand. The personal essays, how do you connect with the person? What is it about a personal essay that you need to write? You don't have to write about earth-shattering things. As long as you can communicate something holistic, as long as you can communicate something new about how you think intellectually, and I want to come and meet you again, do that. Right? It's about meeting a stranger for a cup of coffee. You're going out for a date. It's a blind date. You've been set up by somebody, the person knows nothing about you. You have less than 30 seconds to get your initial impression. Your recommendation letters do not have to say, November was the best student or Sandra was amazing in a class. They have to say something about her struggle. She tried, she failed, she tried, she was doing this. She did not know these concepts. She gets angry at times, but she works on it. Okay, that's what your recommendation letter has to talk about you. That has to build your brand, your character. Your extracurricular activities do not have to be a kitchen sink. They could be just 2 activities, just 2. But as long as you're referencing those in your personal essays, in your demonstrated interest, you're building a cohesive story, you're good. As the previous speaker spoke about, you are a product. The most important thing about this product is authentic, consistent. Okay, you have to be consistent in what you give to people, so it builds over time. You have to be visible at the right place at the right time. You don't have to be in the face all the time. Okay, you have to be valuable with whatever you give. When people come to you, you got to be humble and give them. It's all about what can I give to you, so your time that you're giving me, dedicated time right now, is worth you being here. That's personal branding. So you have control over your brand. Because of social media and other ways, you have a lot more control, okay? But also the situation where people can control a lot about you. That's where the beauty is, that you have now an opportunity to influence people with something consistent. If you send the same message out or similar messages out, people will remember you, okay? It's about differentiation. What makes you special? We talked about the rare and valuable skills. What do you want to be known for? What is unique that you provide to people? You got to take feedback. How do you strengthen your brand? You first need to know what your goal is. Who is the target audience? How does your brand position you to achieve your goal? What changes do I need to make? You make adjustments. You showcase your brand. How do you leverage social media? Establish the value through giving new content. You need to have a plan on a daily basis, weekly basis about what you're going to tweet, what you're going to talk about. How do you manage your brand? You promote your accomplishments. Have the right gravitas in which you're speaking and staying relevant to the point. Volunteer with companies which will give you good recommendations. Send notes to target professors at colleges. Building your services experience with religious groups. These are 2 links to volunteer match areas where if you have some skills, they'll match your skills with volunteer organizations that require your help. The books you should look at and try to build this brand for yourself.
I remember there's a part when we're talking about communicating effectively, and most of us coming from Zimbabwe, India, we have to deal with accent issues in these countries. What are some of the ways you've employed to allow people to hear you effectively when you're saying something, or to even communicate effectively when you're talking to people from different backgrounds?
That's a very important question. And in fact, you probably noticed, even though I try hard to not use my Indian accent, it's still there. I don't have a Native American accent, and I'll never will. But I did go through classes. I actually went through training. I actually got phonetics training to speak the way Americans talk. A few things I did when I came in this country was, there's a channel called NPR on radio, National Public Radio. So one of my mentors said, listen to NPR 1 hour a day, not just listening, actively listening to literally speak back. So when I would drive to work, it was a 1 hour drive, I would listen to that channel where obviously the Native American speakers would talk. And as they were talking, they would finish a sentence. I didn't care about the content. I had to just speak it again. The same thing what they spoke, I had to just say it again, just very similar to what the person on the radio was talking. That helped me big time in changing. A, I was able to slow down. B, I was able to pick up some of the attenuations, how English goes up and down for American speakers. But I'm still not good at it. And I tell you what, your mojo is in who you are, okay? As long as you are legible and you're not too fast and you're respectful, the world will bend to understand your accent. You can only go so far, okay? In fact, you would look very fake if your accent, you had no Zimbabwean accent, if you had no home accent. That's not who you are, okay?
I think my question might be not necessarily related to what you were talking about. But what I mean, obviously, you've got experience of how you have been with a lot of students over the years and all of that. So my question to you is, how hard, not how hard is it to or get um uh, get enrolled for a master's a master's program at a top university in the States, and what is expected of me? Because already, like, I know obviously, like you were saying, you have things like the grades. I'll be vulnerable and talk about myself. For instance, I am I'm going into my third year of economics at the University of Namibia, and I wouldn't want to say I'll be honest, but I don't have the best grades, but I can fully say that I guess that's also partly because of me not applying myself, and I know I'm capable of much more and all of that jazz. So obviously my question to you is, what would I need to, obviously I know I'd have to get my grades up there, and obviously I'd assume that I need to do a lot more in showing the person that I am, and volunteering in being in societies that, like, maybe even being part of Tosio, for instance. I don't know, maybe if you can add more, if maybe I already know it, but I'm just looking for someone to just solidify what I'm trying to say, or what I don't know, but that's my question to you.
Yeah, I can take a crack at the answer, and then I'll expect Ruvimbo and Sandra, because they've done a lot of this, to be able to also give you a perspective on it. I think the first thing is, at a master's level, the expectation of you is different from when you come in at a undergraduate level. And the expectation is that of a expert, or at least of a demonstrated interest, which might not be as important at the undergraduate level, but at the master's level, it becomes a lot more important. Think of it from the point of view as a business transaction. This is like a company hiring you, like a well-esteemed college. When they take you in, or a highly selective college, what they're looking for is a few things. They're saying, is Victor going to graduate? If we get him in, will he finish in 2 years? Will he go on to become somebody who, as an alumni, will give us money back in the school? And will his experiences from Namibia, are they going to be valuable to the classroom cohort? So is he dedicated? Is he showing linearity in growth over the last 4 years? Has he grown? Has his grades been on a upward trajectory? Even though he might not have straight A's, but you could not be going downwards in your last year. You're still in your junior year, so you still have some time to build it up. They are also looking for those rare and valuable skills. So if you're doing economics, there are skills you can pick up along with it, which might not be economics related, but they showcase for, it could be political science, or could be computer science, or something which is showing the admissions officer that in a classroom of, can they make a varied cohort? Can they make a classroom which is fairly diverse in thinking, not just culturally, but in thinking? So you have some things already going in your favor. That is, you didn't grow up in the US, which is actually a good thing. Depends how you look at it. Some might say, oh, it's bad and stuff. No, it's good, okay? Because you bring values which are different. How you portray those values, how you start conversations. Like starting now this year, you should be sending professors notes, research links, trying to start following some specific professors. If there are, like, Ruvimbo's friend Mufaro, wanted to go to MIT, right? So he probably had reached out or had like 8 or 10 professors who were on his hit list, who he was following on LinkedIn, who he was liking, clapping for them, maybe sending a response to them when they posted something. You build your brand in multiple ways. First, you get in touch with their network, you build expertise in their industry, a varied experience, and your academics will matter. So if you think your academics are not there, because I tell you, the biggest problem people have with international students is we can't really value American counselors can't really, like, they know the schools in California, in Fremont, where I live, very well. They know exactly the rigor that the students go through. They will have a much harder time knowing about a specific university, especially if it's not a very well-known university in Namibia. That's where your more on the demonstrated interest comes out. That's where your community work comes around. You don't have to go to the most selective college. You could look at tier 2 colleges, which will also be looking at your skill set. They might actually give you more financial aid than a tier 1 college will. So there are lots of ways to skin the cat. Stay in touch with me. Use my classroom to ask questions. Stay out, and I'm happy to be one-on-one in touch with you about this.